What I would say in answer to this question is that we actually don't know. That we've had a good 10, 15 years of growth around the world that has raised expectations, but I'm going to argue that this is too limited in evidence to suggest that we're observing a fundamental transformation in the nature of the growth process and what makes high growth and rapid convergence possible around the world. So I'm going to be rather pessimistic on the answer to this question. At the same time, I should make clear that part of the answer also depends on what you understand by sustained growth. If you think of sustained growth as the kind of growth of 2% per capita per annum over long periods of time, something that is similar to what the advanced countries have managed over the long term, I certainly think that that's feasible. But what we are unlikely to observe, I think, and what becomes harder in the absence of rapid industrialization is the kind of very rapid convergence and growth on the East Asian style that we have observed. And so I want to make that argument a little bit clearer and explain my reasoning. So this is what has got us all so excited. If you look at the patterns of growth rate by decade around the developing world, dividing them up by income level or by region, quite a remarkable increase in growth over the last 10, 15 years, all across the developing world, sort of low income, middle income, certain East Asian countries sort of increasing. Part of this, of course, is compositional because as China is becoming a bigger part of the total, it's increasing the growth rate of the weighted average. Very rapid, very significant increase in South Asia. Look at sub-Saharan Africa. In a way, that's what got a lot of people quite excited from negative growth rates in per capita terms before. Now sub-Saharan Africa has been growing quite rapidly, in fact, more so than Latin America, which also has increased its growth rate. So this is really the good news, and that's why, in some sense, the background to the question of whether we're in a new era of very rapid growth and sustained rapid convergence. And of course, this pattern of growth, you can see that developing countries have grown much more rapidly than the world on average, and by implication also for the advanced countries. This pattern of growth has had very significant implications on the distribution of income around the world. So this is what has happened, which I think is quite a striking figure over quite a striking change over a relatively short period of time between 1988 and 2005, what was essentially a two-humped bimodal distribution of income around the world. I should say that this is based on household level data across the world, so it encompasses income distribution across countries as well as within countries. So it's a true approximation of the global income distribution. What you see is that the two-humped bimodal distribution has become much more of a single-humped distribution, approximating much more sort of a log normal one. And so this is why people start talking about a global middle class, right? The middle of the income distribution has now actually been filling up. And it's all because of the growth of China, essentially, but the rest of the growth of other low to middle income countries has helped. And if we had more recent data, we'd see more of that. We need to take into account that we have been going through a rather special period. There are a lot of external circumstances which one can say have been largely temporary. Commodity prices, low interest rates, plenty of foreign capital. So, whichever temporary growth model you had, it was a good time. If you're running on commodity prices, you could have a boom on that. If you're running your economy on the basis of lots of short-term capital coming in and foreign borrowing, you could run on that. And there was also in many countries a period of recovery from highly volatile and complicated political situations. Clearly improvements in governance and the macroeconomic framework that allowed many countries that had sort of sunk into the depths of economic catastrophe in the 70s and early 80s to sort of recover from that. And of course, in the background, of course, the Chinese, China's very high growth rate that is, of course, a big part of the overall picture, but also through many channels affected the growth rate of other countries as well. And I think pretty much everybody agrees that the Chinese growth rate will have to be coming down one way or another. So that was another thing that we cannot simply project into the future. We're sort of belatedly, we should have seen this already 10 years ago, that this was, this couldn't be sustained, but now I think it's become clearer to many more that the future is not going to be like the recent past, and you cannot simply extrapolate from that experience into the future. And then you have to ask the question, well, what are the drivers of economic growth, and how likely are those to be sustained? Now, it's very important to underscore that this recent experience of very rapid convergence, very rapid growth in the low to middle income countries is really a special thing, because everybody who studies economic growth knows that convergence, that is sort of low income countries growing more rapidly than high income countries, is very much the exception rather than the rule historically. So two different representations of that, one going back to the last quarter of the 19th century, another looking at the data on a sort of decadal basis, decade by decade, in a simple convergence exercise. Ask, is it the case that countries that start out at low levels of income in fact grow more rapidly? The answer is generally absolutely not, either over the long term, since the first divergence took place, or either on average across decades. So if we're going to be seeing convergence, if we've entered a new era, we have to be clear, we have to understand that this is actually going to be something historically that's new. It's something that ever since the Industrial Revolution actually has not taken place. Now, what the literature has taken from that, the fact that you don't have this kind of convergence, is that we need to think about, sort of a kind of conditional convergence, or convergence taking into account that different countries might have different levels of growth potential driven by their own circumstances. So this literature would say, yes, latecomers, low-income countries have a lot of advantages. They have access to technology, to capital from abroad. They have global markets that they access, but face a lot of other headwinds, the strength of which depend on their own particular circumstances. Of course, many of them have bad policies. We don't always agree on what those bad policies are, but we can agree that many countries have them. They have weak institutions. There are geographical disadvantages. If you believe in poverty traps, many of them may be stuck in poverty traps. So the conventional theory, therefore, is that whatever convergence we're going to observe is going to be conditional, and it's going to be conditional in this form in a bunch of country-level factors. So these theta j's are sort of, let's call them capabilities, country-level capabilities, which I'm going to sort of use as a shorthand for human capital and institutional quality. Okay, so human capital and institutional quality determines the steady rate or the long-run level of income of countries, and each country converges to that its own specific long-run potential level of income according to an equation like this, where gamma is the rate of convergence. So this is basically what conditional convergence means, and the whole debate is really about what's in theta. What's the theta? What is it that countries have got to do to increase their theta? Now, where does industrialization actually fit in here? What role does it play? Well, it turns out that even though convergence is absent across countries, and the best that we can have is conditional convergence, there is one part of the economy which actually does experience unconditional convergence. And that part is manufacturing. To be more specific, it's really the more organized, formal parts of manufacturing, and that's what this data here show. This is UNIDO data across countries on labor productivity, and a rather surprising and quite a striking result across the entire spectrum of formal manufacturing industries. And I show here just 4 two-digit industries, so you can get a sense of how this works out in specific industries, is that it turns out that whenever a country is away from the technological frontier, it experiences more rapid productivity growth. So this is exactly what we wanted to see with unconditional convergence at the country level, which we don't. But if you just focus on the modern parts of those economy, manufacturing, in fact, you do see that happening. And this is quite a general result. So if this is basically all two-digit manufacturing industries across the world, again, a very highly statistically significant negative slope. This is if you aggregate manufacturing on the right-hand side. If you aggregate manufacturing across countries, again, convergence within formal manufacturing. And as I say here in the title, this is really quite general. It turns out that this is in the data as much in the 60s and 70s as it is in the 90s and 2000s. So it actually doesn't have to do with, production, slicing up of the production value chain. It doesn't have to do with globalization because it's already in the data in the 60s and 70s. It's true of region. You can do it for Asia, Africa, Latin America separately. In each of the regions, you observe that. It doesn't matter on sector. Basically, you can do it by 2 digits, 4 digit. Pretty much every level of disaggregation, you see it. So this suggests that there is something special about these modern parts of the economy, which seem to be what I call them escalator industries, that once you build them, that basically you're on an escalator onto the frontier, unlike the rest of the economy. So what does that mean, putting it back together with the overall, well, before I get that, so a little bit more suggestive evidence on the importance of industrialization in driving high growth. This is another way of looking at it, which is just look at countries that have grown very rapidly over at least 3 decades or more. And most of them, of course, are after 1950, if you look at the second column there. And those countries that have experienced rapid convergence after 1950 come in 3 groups. And 2 of them are very clearly rapid industrializers. One group are the group of countries in the European periphery that experienced very rapid industrialization in the 50s and 60s, some of them later on, such as Ireland. The other are the Asian manufacturing miracles, once again, very rapid industrializers. And the only other group of countries that have actually experienced rapid convergence after 1950 is a very small number of natural resource-rich countries which have relatively low population and have been some of the few with plentiful natural resources that have actually managed to do well. And that's sort of the middle group of countries.